Yo, what's going on? It's your boy Ghost here, and today I am bringing you guys another comparison video between the C58 and Krig. And I wanted to make this video because the AR conversation for Warzone has been, picking up lately ever since the update. And in my last video, we actually took a look at the AK-47 compared to Krig. And, I still consider the AK-47 to be a top tier candidate for being the best AR in the game. But right now, popularity does not lie. C58 and Krig are the two most used ARs that I've been seeing. And I wanted to make a comparison between the two to see how they match up well, or how they match up against each other, because this conversation is pretty interesting. But before we do get into that, I want to say if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. We're on the road to 2,000. We're about 210 away. We're getting closer and closer every day. So if you hit that sub button for your boy, that'd be greatly appreciated. Also, man, if you found this video informative or useful, please make sure to leave a like. Let's go for 15 likes. I'm trying to talk about these comparisons because, again, man, the current state of Warzone has been kind of interesting, and I think my next video is gonna have to be a secondary one because the secondary conversation is also as interesting as the primary one. But whatever, man. That being said, let's get into the comparison. And then we have the recoil pattern for the C58, which as you guys can see, it goes straight up. But right now, with the newest development of this weapon, or I guess I should say the rolling cross 4x scope, the recoil on this weapon is pretty much non-existent. If you guys did not know, this actually has been proven by J-Guy, by the way. The rolling cross 4x scope has way less recoil than the 3x scope that most people end up using on their ARs. Now, I will say I do not know if it's just for the C58 or if it's for the or every weapon in general, but I can guarantee you that if you put it on the C58, the recoil will be drastically lower than if you use a 3x scope. But again, this could be applicable to every gun. However, I've seen people use the Krig today, and people are not using the 4x scope on the Krig. But feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, because I probably am wrong. Anyways, the C58, man, has been getting a lot of attention recently. I would say after the Farah got its first nerf, the C58 started to kind of come out of the shadows and people started to begin seeing the potential that this gun had. I personally never really got to use this gun before the patch. I barely was able to max it out towards the end of season, or I guess towards the end, on the last week before the update actually came out, where it completely changed the game. And the gun felt amazing. Like, honestly, I didn't think any gun could gun me. Matter of fact, anytime I went up against it, I was always losing. If some of you guys actually ended up watching my stream, one of the streams that I did, it was like just a random solo stream. Every time I faced the C58, I was always getting destroyed. I probably was like 0-5 against the C58, no matter what range, and it was just unfair. And this gun really reminded me of the AMAX, but just a slower fire rate AMAX. Actually, I feel like it was a no recoil AMAX with just a slower fire rate. And I guess that's even still applicable to now, because even after it got nerfed, people thought that maybe it was going to be affected a lot, but nah, this gun is still very dominant. And again, in the current state of Warzone right now, where they attempted to make the time to kill, I guess, higher, so it required you more to kill someone, right now this gun is a cheat code because it does a lot of damage. It's just like the AK-47. Matter of fact, I'm pretty sure this is the gun that I mentioned in the last video where it actually had more damage than the AK in terms of headshot and just the multiplier in general. And man, like, the gun itself is just very unfair. It has no recoil. Again, with the 4x scope, it has no recoil. And even without the 4x scope, because again, the Raven, I'm not sure if I already mentioned this, but Raven will be tweaking it, or will be fixing it in the upcoming week, more than likely, because they already said they were looking into it. And I'm pretty sure that means that it's going to get nerfed or fixed, I guess, in the next update that comes out next week. So be on the lookout for that. But even with the 3x scope, man, this gun is still very dominant. I will say that with the 4x scope, it's a little bit slower in terms of ADS speed, but you don't even need 55 rounds. Like, if you could have a 45 with the 4x scope, you'll be solid. 55 is, obviously more preferable because you get 10 extra bullets for a weapon that's capable of doing this much damage. But I think 45, you're able to get away with it. I mean, look at the AMAX had 45, you were able to do things with it. The C58 is kind of in the same position. But this weapon, man, this gun is really a cheat code. In comparison to the Krig, I know it doesn't have the fire rate, even though the Krig itself has a pretty slow fire rate. But the C58 definitely has a more noticeable, slower fire rate. But the damage is just something that doesn't lie. Body shot damage, solid. Headshot damage, amazing. And now that I have more time to actually use this weapon and experiment with it properly, I can see why the AK-47 was kind of being overshadowed by a gun like this. Because I think, actually, truthfully, the C58 probably is better than the AK-47. However, the AK-47, in my opinion, is still potentially better than the Krig, and definitely able to compete with the C58. But I still think the C58, there's just certain aspects of it, man, that the AK cannot replicate. But anyways, besides the point, man, that being said, let's get into the Krig. And here we have the recoil pattern for the Krig. And to be honest, this right here is a pretty complicated situation because by default or by the base weapons, the Krig obviously has a way lower recoil than the C58. But when you start putting on attachments and you add on the fact that the 4x scope gives the C58 less recoil, I really can't decide which one has least recoil. And overall, none of these guns have an advantage over the other. And if they do, it's a slightly minimal advantage. And I know you guys might make the argument that with the 4x scope, it might have less recoil than the Krig, which, you know, might be true, may not be true, but technically it's a bug in the game. And on top of that, if there was a difference, I don't think it's too crazy noticeable where, like, the C58 just overwhelmingly has less recoil and is better than the Krig. That's not really the case. Both these weapons, again, very easy to control, very low recoil, and they're paired with a lot of damage, which makes both these guns very deadly, and the reason why most people are using them at the moment right now. I mean, to be honest, a little side note, I can see both of these weapons receiving a nerf in the future. I know it sounds kind of crazy, but considering how other ARs kind of pair up to it, and considering how the C58 and Krig are like the most used ARs at the moment, yeah, I think it's safe to say that a nerf might be in the works. Now, again, I'm not a big fan of guns getting nerfed consistently, but if it means trying to balance in the game, I'm all for it. But we just have to wait and see, but I wouldn't be surprised if it actually ends up happening. But anyways, speaking of damage, both of these weapons, in my opinion, felt very similar in terms of the damage that they outputted. However, the obvious difference that I felt was obviously through the headshot/headshot multiplier. The same way as how I felt with the AK compared to the Krig, but the AK, in my opinion's body shot damage felt a lot weaker than the Krig. And again, I'm only kind of going off feel because I don't have the full stats right now. They're probably out right now, but I don't know, man. I don't have them, so I apologize. I don't mean to be speaking out of my ass, but from what I felt, the C58 and Krig, to me, shared very much more similar body shots than the AK. And again, the AK probably isn't that far behind both of these weapons, but when I was using it, man, the true difference obviously came to the headshot damage. And the C58, man, is no different than that. The C58 headshot damage and multiplier, like I mentioned earlier, is just uncomparable to the Krig. The Krig, you know, with headshots, you're obviously going to get some damage, but, man, it just doesn't feel the same as the C58. And I'm sure that most of you guys who have used the C58 and have witnessed the headshot damage can understand what I'm saying. And for those who have not, man, I'm telling you, bro, use the C58 for a little bit, you'll see what all the rage is about. But I feel like the Krig is better at close to mid-range situations, and that's because with the C58 being paired up with the 4x scope, it makes it a lot slower, obviously. And the Krig is a little bit more mobile. Both of them are, I wouldn't say are like, you know, they're pretty slow, but the Krig isn't as slow as the C58, and that's actually pretty advantageous in those close range situations. Again, you're not going to really see yourself in those type of situations because you're going to more than likely be using a SMG. But when you do find yourself in situations, I believe that the Krig is way better. Mid-range, though, I think the Krig is better because of the fire rate. And I know fire rate and damage could be a topic of a heated discussion where which one is better, which one's more important. But from my perspective, the closer you are to your opponent, I think mobility and just being faster matters. Whereas at long range, those things don't really apply as much, and other factors end up applying more to, you know, long range. And I think that the Krig just fits the closer ranges a lot better than the C58, which honestly I don't think many people can disagree with me on that. Especially since you look at the C58 and you look at the things that it has, and I just don't think that the conversation should really be too disagreed upon. You know, some people want to make the argument about the C58 being better at close to medium range because this, that, and the third, and this Krig the same way. But I mean, look, the C58 4x scope, no recoil, like it's just built for range. And that's not to say that the Krig isn't built for range, because obviously it's built for range. But I just think that the C58 is a little bit more effective than the Krig at range, obviously because it's the 4x scope at the moment. Even though I think that even when that change happens again, where the 4x scope becomes normal, I still think the C58 might have the advantage. over the Krig at range, but we're just gonna have to wait and see on that, because right now I think the C58 is just like the no-brainer option at long range. Again though, the Krig is still a very solid option at that range. It's not like this guy's completely useless at it. It's very close to the C58. It's just that C58 just has that little extra to it to make it better at range. But anyways, man, with that being said, let me know what you guys think of both of these weapons. What do you guys personally rank them in your rankings at the moment? Because I think I have the C58 1, AK second, Krig 3, but they're very close between each other. Not one gun is like overly better than the other. They all have their things, and first off, my personal experience and my personal preference, that's where my list ends up being. But you guys obviously have different preferences and all that, so I want to hear what you guys think. And yeah, thank you for watching. I'll see you guys later. Peace.